Hello there, and welcome to Delightful Dissent. This is episode 20, and if you're tuning in expecting to see me and Sophie talking about the assumption it's all on me, I'm afraid that's been postponed. Sophie can't join us today, though she will join us very soon, so in a couple of weeks' time. So today I'm just going to do a very quick stream and going to have a quick go at the assumption we should meet expectations, because these shows are in some ways an expectation and it feels really relevant, and it's a really big assumption for me. It's one of the things about doing the shows. It's taught me, we're going live, we're completely live, and we don't have control over what happens. So sometimes it does just go wrong. You may remember, if you've been watching right from the beginning, that the very first episode of Delightful Dissent ended up being delayed by a week because we couldn't start. And it hasn't happened very often, but it does happen. So I really appreciate you and the audience bearing with this. So this assumption that you should meet expectations, I think I'm going to give myself the same thing I like to give my guests, and that is I'm going to use a quote to start with. That quote is, "Plans are worthless, but planning is everything," by Dwight D. Eisenhower. And I think this is really important. You have to have a plan, because that's when you figure out what matters. That's when you figure out how it works. But when it actually comes to it, it just all falls apart. I think the other related quote to this one is Mike Tyson, in fact, who's famous as saying, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face." And I think when we meet reality and it all goes wrong like that's often what it feels like. So this idea that we really need to meet expectations, and our own and other people's, is something that stayed with me and bothered me for a long time. I've definitely struggled meeting my own and other people's expectations, and I think it can really pull us away from making the most of the moment and making the most of the opportunity that presents itself, or the opportunities that present itself to us right now. It can blind us to what is available to us, because it's not what we expected. And I've definitely been guilty of that in the past, and probably still am. But when I do let myself go and let myself be a bit freer, I can play with things as they are rather than as I expected them to be or as I wanted them to be. And what's weird is opportunist is kind of an insult. You say someone's an opportunist, you're not really being complimentary. But actually, I think taking advantage of the opportunities that are offered to you is a really good thing, and helping other people do it too. Maybe it's a challenge, maybe it is genuinely a bad thing if you're taking opportunities at the expense of other people. But if you're just taking what's there, then that's no bad thing, even if it isn't what you originally planned. I think that we have this idea of kind of luck, and I often hear this idea of making your own luck, and I think this is really related. It's not that no one can make luck, that's not possible, but what you can do is you can put yourself in a position where you're more able to benefit from the positive things that do turn up. And that looks an awful lot like, from the outside, that you're manufacturing luck. But really what you're doing is you're just putting yourself in a position where you can benefit from whatever turns up, rather than from one very narrow set of plans and specific stuff. There's definitely some fear involved in this. Fear of the unknown, fear of that we won't actually have a plan, and a kind of fear of change. It's not real change, but it's change in what we expected to happen. And that's definitely a really big thing. But for me, you really learn by doing. You kind of get in. You can't understand everything about how something feels and how something is and really understand it from the inside until you've actually done it a few times. And by that point, it can feel too late to change, and you're kind of on this path. But actually taking a bit of a sidestep and taking a pause and a chance to reevaluate and find some new perspective on things from time to time, I find really, really helpful. And interestingly, we're at a point in Delightful Dissent where I'm doing that. I've realized that loads of the assumptions we've been talking about are wrapped up in shoulds, wrapped up in things that I should do. And that's become a really, really big theme. And I think it's actually a really, really important theme for the whole show. So I'm really starting to understand Delightful Dissent in a show about doing what's good when that's not doing what you should, when that's different to doing what you should. And I think that feels really strong and kind of as a different framing, but I had no way of understanding what that is before. And this is one of the big things, I think, when we change plans, it feels like we're going to lose everything and we're going to start from scratch. But my experience is actually most of it's there. It's just a slightly different angle on what's already there rather than a complete change to something else. Letting go of those shoulds, though, is really, really hard because we rely on them. They keep us safe, they give us structure, and we do need some structure. I've spent a lot of time trying to reduce that structure and expecting that I'd be much happier with no structure at all. But that's not entirely true. We definitely benefit from some structure. And letting go of the structure that's got us this far is really, really hard. And creating positive alternatives and positive directions to step into that space of the unknown is one of the ways I found that's really helpful to do that. Because shoulds are really about assumptions. They're assumptions about the way the world works and our needs and how we can meet them. And those assumptions very much include our expectations about the way the world will be and the way that we will be and how we will feel and what we want in each circumstance. And those things change, and updating in response to what we know right now is a much better way of working than assuming that actually it would be better if things were as we'd originally planned them, because we know more, we know different, and things change. That's basically it for today's episode of Delightful Dissent. We are going to hopefully resume normal service next week. I expect we will anyway. And very presciently indeed, we're going to be talking to John Kramer about the assumption that you shouldn't get caught without a plan. So I think we're going to get into this topic a bit more and the whole, improv and exploring things approach. So that should be very, very relevant. Maybe it would be helpful if I'd heard that, had that episode before this, but that's always the way that this stuff works out. And that will be on 1 p.m. Thursday, the 15th of April, 1 p.m. UK time, Thursday, the 15th of April, and I very much hope to see you there. So in the meantime, go out there and make some delightful dissent of your own. Don't worry too much about meeting expectations and what's going to happen, and particularly your own, about the future. You can find more episodes of Delightful Dissent, a whole load of really interesting topics on this and many more at matthewbellringer.com. So do check that out. In fact, matthewbellringer.com/delightful-dissent if you feel like typing it, but there's a link on the homepage, so go there. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn or through the website. Just reach out and have a conversation. I'd love to talk about this, the unexpected, complexity, change, and all of this stuff even more. And I hope to see you on another show very soon. Goodbye.